A supply chain is a network of relationships between the upstream and downstream activities with all stakeholders who are involved in this chain of relationship. When we say upstream, it refers to the points in production that originate early on in the processes. And we say downstream, it refers to the final processes in the production and sale. So basically, upstream and downstream operations are both parts of supply chain that ultimately delivers finished goods to customers. To take an example, so if a particular good or service has to be delivered to the customers, there are raw materials that are needed for the manufacture. He forms of transport and means of storage for the raw materials. So if we have raw materials needed to manufacture, it is really important to have a storage for the raw materials. And then the loss will be the transport of the finished goods to the retailers, and the logistics involved in getting the goods to the customer are all parts of the supply chain that extend from the suppliers to the customers. So when we say logistic is the management of the flow of things between the point of origin and the point of the consumption in order to meet requirements of customers or corporations. In other words, there is a chain of relationship between the firm and the partners involved in this chain. So in supply chain, it is important to have your relation with your firm and your people. So therefore, supply chains are comprised of all these stakeholders, and the relationships between determine the effectiveness of the supply chain. In contemporary times, supply chains can be sources of competitive advantage as efficient management of the supply chain leads to cost savings, and synergies between the components of the supply chain leads to greater profitability for the firms. It is for this reason that many business leaders have focused their energies on optimizing the supply chain for increasing the top line as well as the bottom line. Next is the supply chains as strategic levers. In times of economic recessions, supply chain can be used as strategic levers as they can be optimized to perform better than the rivals, though so that more profits can be extracted and lesser costs incurred. The optimization of the supply chain through just-in-time or GIT methods or holding inventory focus on reducing the COGs or the cost of goods sold by the rationalizing the expenditure on the components of the supply chain all lead to a situation that can be extremely beneficial to the. So when we say GIT methods or just-in-time methods, is it is an inventory strategy where materials are only ordered and received as they are needed in the production process. So it is for this reason that many firms like Walmart, Procter and Gamble, Tata Motors, and Unilever has focused on revolutionizing the activities that form the supply chain. So the point here is that with the astute management of the supply chain, the firms can derive value from the process, which can then translate into greater profits and lesser cost. Apart from this, the supply chains can also be the strategic and competitive advantage because a major portion of the cost of goods sold or COGs is made up to the logistics and the supply chain expenses. So this is the supply chain as strategic levers chart. The first is the point of use data capture. Next is the control tower coordination. Then next is tackling clinical variation. Next is strategic inventory management. And the last is the enhancing supplier relationship. So the next is the case of Walmart. To take some real world examples, Walmart is one retailer that has managed its global supply chain in a adroit and efficient manner, as it operates in various countries around the world. It needs to have control over its global supply chain, and it's where the company with focus on local capabilities and global movement and integrations has made its supply chain leaner and meaner. Further, the company is obsessed with cost and therefore it focuses exclusively on how to make in COGs and the logistic aspects of the supply chain efficient and effective. Apart from this, the single minded obsession with reducing costs has paid off handsomely for the company and it retains its number one position in the retailer market space mainly due to its cost effective strategies that translate into lower unit prices for the products it stocks. Of course, there are many who believe that the company overemphasizes the cost reductions its supply chain and has led to some ethical. However, the point here is that in times of economic gloom, Walmart, with its aggressive approach to supply chain management, has scored over its rivals. Without suggesting that ethics should be discarded or ignored, the fact remains that a concentrated effort to rationalize the supply chain can pay off well for companies. Finally, the twin challenges of the globalization of the world economy and the increase in the global complexity of supply chains are formidable, and when taken together with the effect of the ongoing economic crisis, business leaders have their hands full trying to make decisions on how to meet these challenges.